These are the techniques of assessment. As of now, we know that assessment is a process of knowing what one knows or what one does or what one feels. These two are similar in nature with some differences. Therefore, quickly let us try to distinguish these two using some points. Test is a technique of assessment conducted to know whether the specific learning objectives are achieved. This tells us that a test is a more specific one that identifies the minute areas of learning to know whether the learner has some problems in it or has learned well. But examination is a technique of assessment conducted to know whether the course objectives or general learning objectives are achieved. Therefore, this does not go in detail or in minute areas of learning. It is trying to cover the entire area as one, but leaving the fragments not well noticed. Therefore, a test is to identify the gaps and help learners to overcome. And a teacher can make some interventions to help the students fill the gaps or help the students know something which is not known. Examination is conducted to know the achievement level of students in their course objectives or unit objectives. Test by identifying gaps or problems in learners, acting as a feedback mechanism for teachers and students. From this, a teacher could understand that the learning experiences provided to the students are not appropriate, thus they may require some change. But examination is conducted for either certification, marking, grading, or promotion. And the one who failed in the examination would need to repeat the examination. There is no much remedy given on the spot. Tests are conducted within a very short duration, but comparably examinations are conducted in longer duration. Test is informal, as designing, developing, implementing, and reporting do not involve formalities, but examinations are formal in nature in their administration, scoring, development, design, and the analytics done after the examinations. Test could be conducted without any standardization. This is relevant to only the tests conducted in the educational institutions, and it should not be confused with those intelligence tests, aptitude tests, which are standardized to compare and rank people. Examinations are standardized. There is a mistake that should be corrected. Tests are flexible. This is to tell that flexible in mode, in method, in scoring, or in reporting. Many tests can be conducted surprisingly. In the class, oral test can be conducted depending upon the availability of resources, time, and other factors. A teacher can conduct in a way she feels better, but examinations are conducted following the formalities, therefore they are rigid in nature. Scope of test is very narrow because it covers a shorter area of learning and shorter domain of learning, and it concentrates only the specific objectives. But examination covers larger areas of learning. There is a mistake that needs correction. Design of test requires minimum effort, time, and resources, unlike examinations. In the case of test, feedback is immediate and quick, but usually examinations, apart from giving marks, do not leave any feedback. Test is conducted continuously, but examination is something that is conducted periodically after a long interval of time and also comprehensively. Let us look into the types of tests, and very few tests are listed here and explained, but there are some others which the readers could further learn from the sources available. Aptitude test is a test that measures one's potential capacity or latent ability, which is specific, unlike intelligence test. Aptitude tests assesses the specific ability of an individual to predict the likelihood of a positive behavior in future, provided the intervention program is conducted and attended sincerely. Example includes numerical aptitude test that assesses the numerical thinking. Such other tests such as verbal reasoning test, logical thinking test, and so on. Numerical aptitude test assesses not only the numerical thinking but also verbal reasoning and logical thinking capacity of a person. Verbal aptitude test is another example for the aptitude test, and that tries to assess the verbal reasoning and vocabulary of an individual. Some other aptitude tests include mechanical aptitude test, spatial aptitude test, and situational judgment test. Aptitude is sounding similar to attitude, but attitude is a person's predisposition, and that makes him to behave in certain ways in certain circumstances. The aptitude test is designed to measure an individual's attitude, opinions, beliefs, and preferences on various topics and issues. These tests use a scale such as 5-point scale, 7-point scale, or 9-point scale to quantify attitude. Therefore, attitude test is a quantitative type of assessment. Example for attitude test includes Likert scale, in which the respondents are to rate using a scale. A 5-point scale looks like what is given on the right side of the slide. Strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. Out of these 5, the respondent, according to one's tendency, should choose one among the 5. Some other attitude tests are listed here, such as Thurston scale, semantic differential scale, forced choice format. Intelligence test, as we mentioned earlier, is also similar to aptitude test, but unlike aptitude test, this measures the general ability of a person, covering mental ability, numerical ability, memory, etc. That will be an indicator of future performance. One thing we should understand here, that is, both these intelligence tests and aptitude tests are conducted without conducting any teaching learning program. This is to know what they are now and what are inherent in them, and with which what they can do in future. This tells the future of someone in certain areas of learning, and this is going to be an indicator of their future performance. We can say that this is to measure their potential in general ability in the case of intelligence test, and a specific ability in the case of aptitude test. Example for intelligence test include Wechsler's intelligence test for children, Wechsler's intelligence test for adults, Stanford Binet intelligence test, the Army Alpha test, and Army Beta test. Achievement test is the one that is also known as teacher-made test, if that is not a standardized one, and this differs from the all other tests which we had mentioned earlier. Achievement test is a test conducted only after a learning intervention is made. This is to say, after teaching, a teacher is trying to know whether what he taught reached the students, or whether the learning objectives of what had been taught in the classroom, or what learning experiences provided in the classroom would have an impact upon the students. If so, to what extent they have learned. An achievement test can be standardized or non-standardized. We mentioned earlier and have seen a definition on standardization, that is, applying uniform standards and administration procedures and scoring procedures. So yes, an achievement test is standardized. That is called a standardized achievement test, and if not, we can simply say that either a teacher-made test or a non-standardized achievement test. Situational tests are the assessment techniques in which some real-life situations are provided to the learner for knowing their efficiency in the appropriate actions to solve problems or suggest solutions. This is to identify an individual's problem-solving skills, reasoning skills, decision-making, judgment, and ability to handle and act efficiently upon real-life situations. Interest tests. This is a test to find out the interest of a person or interest of a person in a job, in a particular job, also known as interest inventory. Interest inventory is trying to find out the interest of a person. Examples such as Holland Code, strong interest inventory, and so on. Personality test. Personality describes the behavioral, cognitive, and emotional patterns that make up a person's unique adjustment to life. There are two types of personality tests, such as objective type and projectile type. Objective type constitutes examples such as Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, Myers-Briggs Personality Type Indicator, and others. Projective type includes examples such as Thematic Apperception Test, Rosenzweig Test, and so on. There are some other types based on the administration or the techniques used or even the time that determines the test, such as oral test, written test, performance test, individual test, group test, power test and speed test, diagnostic test and the prognostic test, computer assisted test and online test, polygraphy test, graphology test, verbal test, and non-verbal test. These can be further elaborated on either your own or from the materials supplied to you. With this topic ends.